Hi Year 3, welcome to your maths video for Thursday the 4th of March. So this is a video for you if you've got the Year 3 maths booklet. Now before we begin, I've got another 2 shout outs to give this morning. I want to say a big well done to Jamie Lee and MJ. You have been working so hard on your maths work, both of you, so well done, we're very impressed. So today we're going to be completing page 29 in our maths booklet. It's just page 29 based on equivalent fractions. And like always, I've got some challenges along the way for you to complete in your purple book and on your whiteboards. So let's start off with one of those warm-up challenges today, having a look at fractions of shapes, okay? So I have got 5 different shapes here, and I'd like you to write either on your whiteboard or in your purple book the fractions that are represented by each of these shapes, so the fractions that are shown in each of these shapes. So I'm going to show you one first, okay? So we know a fraction is part of a whole, and it's made up of a numerator at the top of the fraction and a denominator at the bottom of the fraction. So if I have a look at this shape, if I've got the whole thing, I've got the whole circle. But you can see my shape has been split into parts. So I'm going to count first how many equal parts this shape has been split into. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's going to be my denominator because the shape was split into 5 equal parts to begin with. You can see those 5 equal parts there. But my numerator at the top of the fraction tells me how many of those equal parts I have. And I can see there in green, I've got 1, 2, 3 of those equal parts that have been shaded in. So this shape here is represented, it's showing the fraction 3/5. So I'd like you to pause the video now and in your purple book or on your whiteboard, tell me the fractions that are represented, that are shown in each of these shapes. So there's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So pause my video and have a go at that. So let's have a look at our learning question for today. So today we're going to be recognising and drawing equivalent fractions. Now, fractions, we started on these yesterday where we were counting in tenths. We discussed that fractions are part of a whole, so we've not quite got the whole thing yet, okay? Now, equivalent, that word means equal. And we know equal means we've got the same amount, they're worth the same, okay? So if we're sharing out equally something, we'd each get the same amount. So let's have a look then at what equivalent fractions are. So we know equivalent means equal. So equivalent fractions have the same value. So they're different fractions that are worth the same. So they look different, but they are fractions that have the same amount, the same parts. So let's have a look at these 3 circles here. They each represent a different fraction. So the first fraction, shown in this circle, it was split into 2 equal parts, so that's my denominator. And I've got 1 out of those 2 equal parts shaded in. So this circle is showing a half. This one, it was split into 4 equal parts, and we've got 2 out of those 4 parts. My final circle then, it was split into 8 equal parts, and we have got 4 out of those 8 equal parts. Now, a half, 2 quarters and 4/8, they all look different, but they're actually worth the same amount. And if you look carefully at these circles that represent each of those fractions, if I took that half slice and put it over the top of 2 quarters, it'd fill the same amount of that circle up. It's worth the same. The same if I took that slice of 2 quarters and put it over these 4/8 there, it'd still be worth the same amount. So these fractions may look different, but they're worth the same. So let's have a look at some similar questions to the questions that you've got in your booklet for today based on equivalent fractions. So my first question is asking me to shade these shapes so they have equal fractions shaded. So you can see here, I have got a rectangle, a very long rectangle. And my rectangle has been split into 2 parts and I've got 1 out of those 2 parts. So I've got a half there. I'm going to jot that fraction down. Now it's telling me that a half is the same as, and I've got a blank shape here that's been split into parts. So let's count how many parts it's been split into. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's been split into 10 equal parts. But I need to shade some of these parts so it's equivalent, it's worth the same as this half. Now if we visualise, that means we picture taking that half and placing it over the top of this shape here. If I shade that in, have a look. Oh look, how many parts out of those 10 equal parts have I shaded in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5/10. So 5/10 is equivalent, that means it's worth the same as a half. And if you notice, 5/10, half of 10 is 5, okay? Like half of 2 is 1, so they're worth the same amount, they're equivalent fractions. Let's take a look at another shape. So I've got here circles this time. Let's see what fraction we've got in this circle. So it was split into 3 equal parts, and I've got 1 out of those 3 equal parts shaded in, so we've got a third. This shape is representing, it's showing a third. And it's telling me that a third is the same as, and I've got another shape here that's been split into lots of different equal parts. So let's see how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this shape has been split into 9 equal parts. But if we visualise and picture again, taking that third and placing it in the same place on this shape, that takes up 3 out of my 9 pieces. 3 out of 9, which we know is 3/9 as a fraction. So this is telling me that 1/3 is equivalent to, we use the equals sign because that means equals, it's the same as 3/9. So if you want to pause the video now and have a go at shading in the equivalent fractions on page 29 for today, pause the video and have a go at that. So you've got another similar question to this one on my board. So looking at equivalent fractions, fractions that are equal to each other worth the same amount, I've got the fractions 4/6, and I can see that there on my shape. 4/6 of this shape is shaded. So 4 parts out of the 6 parts are shaded in. Write down a fraction that is equal to this, so worth the same amount. Now for this type of question, because I've got the shape there, I can use the shape to help me, I can visualise. So you can see here my shape. To split it into 6, we've got 2 lines going down and 1 horizontally across there. Now if I imagine and I take off this horizontal line, so if I get my green pen, if I shade that in green, so that's 1, 2, and then if I get a white pen and make this just 1 here, what can you see now? I've got 3 parts, and how many of those parts are shaded in? 2. So my fraction here is showing 2/3. So 2/3 is the same, it's equivalent to 4/6. Okay, so when you've got the shape there, you can use that to help you visualise an equivalent fraction, okay? Another similar question that we've got another shape again, is asking you to look at the shape below. So make sure if you've got a shape there, you're using it to help you work out the equivalent fractions. So my shape below, what fraction of the shape is shaded? So we're going to really understand that first. Now if you have a look, we've got 1 shaded, 1 not. There's a bit of a pattern going on there. So 1 shaded, 1 not, 1 shaded, 1 not, and so on. So how many parts have I got all together? How many equal parts has my shape been split into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my denominator is 8 because it's been split into 8 equal parts. But the parts that are shaded in, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 out of my 8 parts shaded in. Now if you see that, 1 out of the 2 there has been shaded in. The same again here. What do you notice about the numbers 4 and 8? What relationship have they got? Well, half of 8 is 4, okay? So we're looking at a half, aren't we? Because if I move these blocks to there, half of my shape is shaded in. So if I was to write down 2 fractions that are equivalent to this fraction, I know 4/8 is the same as a half. What else do we know that's the same as a half? I could play around with a shape. So if I split this shape into 2 parts, I've got that as my half. If I went to split it into quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4, how many parts of those quarters have been shaded in? 1, 2, 2 out of 4. So another fraction that's equivalent to 4/8 is 2 quarters, okay? So really look at your shape and really understand it and play around, visualising and moving those shaded parts so you can really understand what the equivalent fractions are. Finally then, the last question on your page 29 today, I've spotted is quite tricky based on equivalent fractions. So we're going to have a look at this one together. So you might want to get your maths booklet at the ready so we can complete this question together. So it says question number 4, circle the fraction, so we've been provided with 4 fractions, circle the fraction below that is equal to 1/6. Now 1/6 has been written in words there, so I'm going to write that as a fraction. So 1/6, I've got 1 part out of 6 equal parts, 1/6. So I need to circle a fraction here that is equivalent to 1/6. That means it's worth the same value, okay? Now I haven't got on this question any shapes to help me with this. So when we are finding equivalent fractions, we can use multiplication and division, okay? Now, taking the fraction 1/6, when we're finding equivalent fraction using multiplication and division, we've got to treat the numerator and the denominator the same, okay? Because fractions like to stay the same. So the numerator and denominator, we've got to treat them equally and treat them the same. Now, if I was going to divide my numerator and my denominator by a number, I'm going to get into a bit of trouble there because I've got 1 as my numerator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply my numerator and my denominator by the same number, because remember I said they like to be treated the same, okay? So, looking at 1/6, I'm going to multiply, to start off with, my numerator by 2, and I'm going to multiply my denominator by 2, okay? So 1 times 2, I know that's 2. 6 times 2, let's count in our 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, okay? So I've treated the numerator and denominator the same and multiplied the top and the bottom of my fraction by 2. And I've got an equivalent fraction to 1/6 of 2 twelfths. Can you find 2 twelfths there? Have we got it? Oh, yeah, we've got it there. So you can find equivalent fractions by multiplying and dividing your numerator and denominator by the same number, okay? So complete question 4 and then come back to have a look at our All-Star Challenge for today. So in my All-Star Challenge today, I've got 2 sets of equivalent fraction questions for you to have a go at. So the first one, I've got 3 questions where it's asking you to complete the equivalent fractions. And for this question, we've got some shapes again to help us with this. I've got here a rectangle right at the top that's been split into 2 equal parts. So I've got 2 as my denominator, and one of those parts in green has been shaded in. So I've got a half there, and it's saying a half is equal to, it's worth the same as something over 8. And you can see I've got another rectangle below that's been split into 8 equal parts. Oh. And 4 of them are shaded in and they are equivalent to a half. So 4/8 is the same, it's equal to a half. So you can complete these on your whiteboard or in your purple book. So when I've just helped you with A, so you can complete B and C. So you might want to pause the video now and have a go at that challenge. And then when you've done that challenge, I've got another one for you. We've got some more equivalent fractions. So the first thing you need to do is work out the fraction of each shape. So what fraction of these shapes are shaded. So count how many equal parts they've been split into and how many parts are shaded to get your fraction. Once you've wrote your fractions down, you're going to use them to complete the sentences here in two ways. So you can use one of those fractions that you found. So something is equivalent to another one of these fractions you found, and another fraction from here is equivalent to another fraction from here. Use those shapes to help you visualise. Remember, we can pop it over and see what it's equivalent to. So I can't wait to see your equivalent fraction work for today. If you're still wanting a challenge, get yourself onto TT Rockstars, because lots of you have been really improving your TT Rockstars time, so well done Year 3. So take care and I'll see you soon.